Hello everybody, welcome back to the Beyond Reach podcast. Today we have Scott Davis. He spoke last week and it was really good. So Scott, thanks for being here.
No problem.
How's your day been so far?
Been pretty good. Kind of slept in a bit, but you know, that's fine. I'm just wondering when I can get lunch, but other than that, I'm all good.
Yeah, me too. I've been very tired recently.
I'm sorry, man.
It's okay, we've had some technical difficulties trying to get this one started up, but
Good.
which has also been surrounding this in particular sermon.
Apparently.
So it's been not good, but I think he's just trying to test you.
I mean, I did just preach on trials and stuff, so it makes sense, I guess.
So a lot of what you spoke about was your own kind of personal testimony as well. What kind of like prompted you, or what led you to kind of speak about that?
Well, when Barry asked me to talk about or just preach, he didn't give me like a topic or anything, which is fair. It's first sermon, and he seems to leave it pretty open-ended.
Yeah.
And I was doing an internship over the summer. Actually started at my home church in Alabama, One Hope. And I was working with one of the pastors there, Misty Short, and she's a really good preacher. So I had her kind of mentoring me through like what it's like to prep a sermon.
Yeah.
And so I was working with her for a while, and then I swapped over to doing an internship with a hospice chaplain. And so I was riding around with him like for 5 to 6 hours a day. And so he was the head pastor of a church as well as being a hospice chaplain. And so he was also kind of mentoring me through the process. And he told me that the best preaching that you'll probably ever do is your like own personal story, because that's what God's put in your life. Like Paul's most powerful preaching came from, you know, the story of him being converted on the road to Damascus.
Right.
So,
yeah, I did a personal like home church internship this summer, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. So
glad to hear. What'd you do over there?
I was just with the students most of the time. It was a lot of camp stuff and prepping for camp stuff.
So like the youth ministry stuff?
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
I loved it. I was gonna do a sermon, but I got COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
And I was really upset about it. So
I was worried that I had gotten COVID right before the sermon at Reach.
That's what everyone was thinking, man. We're like, oh crap, Barry's gonna have to come speak.
Well, that wasn't my plan either. It's just I wasn't in control. So
yeah.
It's funny too, because like I got to feeling a lot better right before like I was actually supposed to be preaching, and so I got through the sermon pretty well, and then like went out to my dad's birthday dinner and all that.
Where'd you guys go?
Over to Red Bull.
Never heard of that.
Oh really? Mm-mm. It's pretty good. It's like an Asian bistro in the area. It's over by like Publix.
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Should go there sometime. And then like the day after, I was immediately just back to being sick. I guess God just like healed me for long enough to get through the sermon stuff, and then like.
And then done.
Yep.
He said, all right, now you're gonna suffer for it. Also, a lot of what you spoke about was that God was with you, especially through those hard times, and he kind of showed you like the good things also came from the bad things. Mm-hmm. Would you say that most of your life has been overcoming these bad things that you kind of have experienced?
I hate to put it that way, because like I don't mean to just say like, oh no, my life's just been terrible. It's all been like, oh me, I'll overcome like hardships and all that.
Yeah.
I was actually like in my basic Christian beliefs class yesterday, and one of the softball coaches, Coach Mallory, was talking about how she was turning her own negative experiences into positive experiences for other people, and I think that's kind of what I try to live by. Where like I'll try to turn my own negative experiences into like being able to reach out to other people, because like I'll never know what it's like to go through every struggle. Yeah. Like I'll never ever fully be able to understand what it's like to grow up in an abusive household, because I was born into a very loving, supportive household. Yeah. But I understand generally what it's like to go through really hard times and to feel like no one really understands and to feel really alone in that. And so generally speaking, whenever someone's going through a really, really hard time, I can come beside them and help them through that. And ever since I've come to school, I've been able to do that a lot more than I thought I would have. And so I'm kind of able to see how God's been using those experiences in my life. It's not my proudest thing to say, but even like knowing that it's been like God's used that to use me to help more people, I can't say that I would go through it all again, just because it was still really, really hard. Which, like, I didn't really talk about the symptoms much at Reach, but I assume that's more all right here. It's not like I'm not going to get into nitty gritty.
Yeah.
It's like my main problems are like chronic pain and chronic fatigue, which are like fancy words for basically saying like I'm always like in some amount of pain.
Yeah.
And like not to sugarcoat it, like I'm always suffering to some extent.
Yeah.
And then chronic fatigue is, I'm just always tired. And so like it's always sapping my energy. It's always like taking something out of me. I actually didn't grow for a long time because of that, and my dad didn't either because my dad has something really similar. I say it's Crohn's. It's more similar to something between IBS and Crohn's, but not quite either. And so finding treatment for it has been really hard.
Yeah.
For a while there, especially when I was a teenager, I was going to a children's hospital like twice a month. And getting blood drawn every time because they just didn't know what was wrong with me. And I still have like scars, like the inside of my elbows are like mostly scar tissue just from the amount of times they've dug around in there trying to get blood. Which, probably didn't want to hear about all that.
No, man.
So apologies.
That's what it's for.
But yeah, it's, and eventually, it was like my symptoms started when I was 13 years old, and they didn't hand me a diagnosis until I was 15. So there were 2 years of just being sick and trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I started getting treatment, and then I started finally being able to grow because like my body wasn't just losing nutrients for no reason.
Yeah.
Even then, the treatment wasn't all right at first. Like for a while, I was injecting myself once a week with stuff like from chemo. And so that made me feel awful every week.
Yeah.
I still like have a weird response to like rubbing alcohol because you're supposed to like sterilize wherever you inject yourself with rubbing alcohol. And since it made me feel so nauseous, it's now just the smell of rubbing alcohol makes me feel nauseous. Just because of association and how the brain works. I stopped being on that since COVID hit though, just because I wanted my immune system up and running.
Yeah.
And so since then, I've been kind of working with a different doctor, especially since I aged out of the children's hospital.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to figure out which treatments work and don't work. And I've had surgeries and all that. As far as Crohn's goes, mine's is fairly mild. Like I won't like talk about who they are or anything, but I've talked to people like even here who have dealt with the same thing. And when they have flare-ups, they have to go like have surgery. And it's really serious. When I have a flare-up, it's like I go on bed rest for a few days.
Yeah.
And so mine's significantly more mild, especially because it can be fatal for someone.
Yeah.
And so that's like during the sermon, even I said that I consider myself like an extremely blessed person. And that's one of the reasons why it's just like, even though like I got unlucky and got this thing that's going to affect me for the rest of my life, unless God decides to heal me, as far as like bad things go, this isn't as bad as it could be, And
I know that's something you said as well, is that you don't want people like feeling bad for you, especially like this isn't a sob story when you're trying to preach your sermon. I don't think it is at all. I just think it's your life.
Yeah, it's
and that's kind of hard to kind of show when you're trying to just show your testimony, but it's not. It's your life, and it's what you've overcome.
Well, I appreciate that. It's really hard to get that balance of just like getting someone to really understand without like getting them to feel awful for you, because like it's a stomachache. That's all it really is at the end of the day. But at the end and like going through that for 1 or 2 days straight is no big deal. But it's been almost 10 years,
right? And
so like that's taken a lot out of me over the years. And it's like I used to be able to do a lot more. Physically and mentally, but just like even being in the constant pain, kind of like sitting in class, it's like I get brain fog and I get distracted by that kind of thing because it feels like there's a drill in my stomach all the time.
Yeah.
And there are some things that I can do to make it better or make it worse, but even then I could do everything right and then have a bad day.
Yeah.
Or I can do everything poorly and have a good day. It feels kind of random. But I know like stress makes it worse, so I've had to get very, very good at like figuring out how to manage my own emotional state of being, and like figuring out how to not get upset at things that wouldn't normally upset someone.
Yeah.
like I was a very angry child, and so I had to figure out how to rein that in for one thing. And especially with my sister, like my older sister and I would get into fights all the time. Like not fist fights, but
I know.
I mean, we did do Taekwondo, so we did actually, that's fine. Irrelevant, but she was usually better at it than I was.
Is she older?
Yeah, she's 2 years older than me. I'm actually quite proud of her. Her name's Julia. She just got her master's over from University of Alabama.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she just moved out and is living in Birmingham. She's blown up on TikTok. She's like got almost 700K followers. So yeah.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So, did you grow up Christian?
I did.
Was your family Christian?
Yeah, I remember like feeling self-conscious for a while, especially like after I came to SWU and like hearing about all these like religious and major people or like the preachers who like have these like conversion stories. Just like, oh man, I just grew up in the church. Like, right. I don't really remember like exactly being as saved, or if it was, then it was like when I was a kid, and like I don't even really remember it. So I've just had Jesus in my life for as long as I can remember it. I like it that way personally. Yeah. Even like as far as a call to ministry goes, it was more like when I was 15, I was in Jamaica over with West Pate actually. And I like, man, if I could be doing this like every day, I'd never work a day in my life. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when I decided that I wanted to go into ministry. But I don't know if that's really what being called to ministry feels like for everyone. I mean, God's definitely paved a path for me one way or another. So I feel like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like, everyone does ministry. And no matter what field they do, I'm just a very straightforward type of person. So I like to do it as my line of work.
Yeah. What made you want to come to SWU?
I grew up in the Wesleyan Church. One Hope used to be called First Wesleyan Church, actually. We came here sometimes for summer camps.
Okay.
We came here for something called Campus Challenge. I don't know if they still do it or not, honestly, but it was a competition once every summer where you go show off your talents to some judges, musically or like artistically otherwise, like photography, videography, all that. And I like came and played guitar and sang in choir sometimes and earned some scholarship money here. So I'd kind of grown up hearing about it. Yeah. And then when I decided I wanted to go into ministry, it's like, well, this is probably where God's pointing me. So here I ended up.
Do you love it so far?
I do. It's my 5th year here, so I would hope I like it here. But yeah, the community's always been great. I'm a very like philosophically minded person, and so like even with preaching, I've been like struggling to figure out how to like package like the big questions that I like to ponder into like digestible stuff.
Yeah.
But I used to bug my parents a lot, especially my mom, with like pondering big questions and like having to talk it out with someone. And it'd always be like super late at night. So I'd like pull my mom into the living room at like 2 a.m. and talk to her for hours about it. And like my sister and dad just wanted, they'd get annoyed with me for trying to talk with them about it just because, it's not their favorite things to talk about.
Yeah.
But like I noticed as soon as I got here, I could literally like pull anyone aside and talk to them for hours, and they do not care. Like that's what they like to do.
That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. But like we scheduled this, but like I could literally go into Blue Hill and pick like that guy in the corner and talk to him for what? That's Carlos, so he'd be willing to.
I love Carlos. Do you have any advice for anybody? I know it's kind of came out for out of left field, but like just for like. Especially about your sermon, like pertaining to that. Like, do you have any advice for people like growing up? Maybe if they were bullied growing up, or things that they're struggling with to kind of give to God.
It's the best piece of encouragement that I can give is that whatever you may think, you don't have to be unshakable in your faith. Like I feel like in our modern church and in our modern faith, we're constantly told like as you grow in your relationship with God, you're supposed to like become this unshakable rock. Yeah. You're supposed to question God. You're always supposed to have 100% faith. Yeah. And never like get upset about anything. Or that's not true. It's not in the fine print. Yeah. Jesus says have the faith of a mustard seed and that kind of thing. But like even with that, David, the man after God's own heart, wrote tons of psalms about like how he was angry with God and how he was upset about stuff. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure if the man after God's own heart was doing that, I'm pretty sure it's all right for you and I to be doing that. And while I'd like to, be able to say that I went through those years of hardship, and like I still go through some hardship, it's just like that's in the past, so I can talk with that more completely now.
Right.
And while I like to be able to say that I went through all of that and like never questioned God and never like got upset or like wondered if God was even really real or like got upset because like this is after I decided to like give my life to God in servitude to Him. Right. It's like, oh, this is how you treat your servants. And like never said any of that or like never like shouted at God or anything. Like that's just not what happened. That's not how it played out.
Yeah.
That's not the story that God put in my life. And if I got up on a platform and preached that, I'd be lying. That's not God's story. As far as like the vine analogy goes, it's like, you can shake, you can bleed, you can cry, you can do whatever you want. You just can't let go. That's that's the best piece of advice I can have is just if you want to like be upset at God for a while, if you want to like give Him the silent treatment, that's fine. He's big enough for that. If you want to be the prodigal son even and then go off for a bit and do whatever, that's fine, as long as you come back. That's the important part. Keep in mind, at the end of the day, we don't know when He's coming back. We don't know the day or the hour that you'll even pass from this world. And so, like, try to be on good terms with God before then. And so it's generally a good idea to, not have that rebellious thing.
Yeah.
But if you have to, it's fine. God's forgiving. God's understanding. He'll give us grace through it. Yeah. I'm not trying to encourage you to like go and like be mad at God or go and do drugs or anything like that, or have that rebellious phase. I'm saying that like you can get upset with God. You can struggle. It's all right to struggle. In fact, I think that the people who have struggled come out the other side a bit more mature than the people who haven't. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with never having struggles. Yeah. I think that's fantastic even. I want to wish what I've been through on my worst enemy. I have noticed that there, like the people who go through, I don't want to call what I went through like trauma or anything like that. But the people who have gone through like those really hard times, like are generally able to like have much deeper levels of conversation than like the people who haven't, which again is fine. It feels like a trade that's not even at all. I don't want to have been through bullying or anything to be able to like talk on a deep level with someone. Right. And there are some people who are gifted that way and don't have to go through anything to be able to have deep intellectual conversations. Yeah. But generally, like the people who like have seen the worst sides of the world understand a bit more about the world, if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
As opposed to someone who's just lived their whole lives in the sunshine,
Yeah.
Which, like I said, I don't resent those people at all. I don't even resent the people that like bullied me. Which I say that they bullied me. It wasn't exactly all of them directly bullying me. Yeah. Because it was a class of 28 people. It was the people that I'd grown up with, and I even stuck up for them, and none of them stuck up for me. And that just felt like indirect betrayal,
Right.
But recently, like even this last summer, I got the chance to reconnect with a lot of them, and I made up with them. I got on good terms with them.
That's good.
And I actually found out a lot that was going on behind the scenes where they were sticking up for me, and I just had no idea. So it doesn't entirely fix stuff, but it gave me some peace of mind, some closure,
That's really good. All right, well, Scott, I really appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, sorry, I turned into a really long rant.
No, I love it, man. I love it. I really appreciate you coming out and speaking your piece. It was really good.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Of course. You have a good day. Next week, we're going to be having Alexis Mamarillo. Thank you so much. See you guys later.